Hey, sorry it took so long. It took way longer than usual. Sorry about that. That was because I went to the toilet before stream, which is not something like super new. Sometimes I need to go to the toilet and I just put on the start screen and let that play a little bit while let viewers come in and stuff. But today the toilet just decided to get clogged, so I had to fix that. Anyway, I am here now, so that's great. And hopefully today I can finish our boss, which is the thing the SCP I've been dealing with for a while. This is what, like the fifth stream I've been reading it. Either way, I hope I can finish it. But then again, it is. I was planning to like finish it today, but at the same time, I have been feeling a little bit off the weather today. I woke up feeling nauseous, so that wasn't great. But I've been better since then. I've been getting better, so hopefully I can finish this today. Let me switch this screen. If it will let me, 2 seconds. Holy shit, my keyboard is messed up. There we go. Here. Where did I get to? I read that one. This one, I got to the Archivist 10. Which is I've only gone through 3 out of 13. I don't know how I possibly plan to finish this today, but hey, maybe it'll happen. Maybe it won't. O5-10. Formerly Diane Walters, a librarian, Caucasian female, appears to be in her late 40s. Possible strong connections to the Wanderers Library. Extensive knowledge about the Foundation's involvement in previous end-of-the-world scenarios. Supposedly maintains a constant record of every activity taken on Earth from the moment she took her place on the Council forward. These records are used extensively in the application of the machine beneath Yellowstone. I know that one. That's SCP 2000. The world's reset button, so to speak. One source identified O5-10 as being the most bloodthirsty member of the Council. According the source, I'm guessing it's meant to be according to the source, she is obsessed with the perceived divinity of herself and the Council, believing herself to be above any natural laws. In her eyes, normal humans are fodder, a means to an end in reaching some greater understanding of universal truth. Some sources indicate a possible obsession with the idea of omniscience, or not omnipotence, it's omniscience. This has not been verified. Decryption complete. Chapter 4. The Spear and the Serpent. and a little tree with a serpent going up it. I'm guessing that's a reference to the Bible when the snake offers an apple to Eve, or tricks Eve into taking a bite out of an apple. Also, that's the second reference to that Bible story that we've gotten in this SCP. So I'm seeing a trend. Then a photo of a brick house, possibly European, although I can't say for certain. I mean, I live in Europe and I see brick houses all over the place, also with these like weird little places where they light up because of, I don't know, erosion or something. Then again, there's these like very square. No, those are in Europe too. I'm no geoguesser expert. Like I can't guess a location of a place from just seeing an image. In the stillness of the tiny apartment, oh, I'm guessing it's supposed to be an apartment then. In the stillness of the tiny apartment, Vincent Arians sipped his drink. A half-finished bottle and a loaded pistol sat on the countertop nearby. Thin bands of twilight peeked in through the slits of the blinds, illuminating the prone form of Aaron Siegel on the ground in front of him. Arian set the glass aside and took a long drag on his cigarette, his eyes squinting against the luminance. A moment later, Aaron stirred. He pushed himself up onto his elbows, one hand wiping sleep and saliva out of his beard. His face, puffy and red, turned to face Arian's. "What happened?" he croaked. "Where are we?" He looked down at his hands. They were still trembling. "Did it work?" Arians took another drag of the cigarette. Smoke flowed slowly out of his nostrils, catching the light in front of him. He was barely visible behind the haze. "He's dead." What does this link to? That links to 201. That links to the... Is this not the first chapter? Yeah, this is like the first This is the first chapter. Arians and Aaron. Susik, is that... That might be the... Is that the guys who escaped? Administrator Adi Williams accomplishes... Sorry. I had some, like, I think I got a hair or something in my eye and it, like, completely messed it up, so I needed something cold on it. You eat some, okay, something, so, it's possibly someone from that. They killed Williams, and I think in 05 or something. Whatever. He's dead. Aliens, his eyes focused on some point in the distance. It worked. For a long moment, Aaron did not move. Then, suddenly, he slammed his fist into the ground. "Yes," he hissed through his clenched jaws. Yes, hissed. Hissed. I want to point out the word hissed. That is also something associated with serpents a lot. Arian's expression was distant. "We almost died, you know." He dribbled the ash on the carpet to his right. Some of us didn't make it. Aaron staggered upright, then fell down with his back against the wall. He held out his hand. Aaron passed him the cigarette. How many? Aaron asked. You and I, Felix. You and I, Felix, Conrad, Ingrid. Aaron counted on his fingers. 5 total. Felix has already reached out to researchers at other sites. Some of them are reaching out to us. Everyone is scared shitless. He took another drink. Thought you might be dead. Aaron rubbed his temples. I don't remember much. He looked over at Arians. You look younger. Yeah, we all do. That water will do that. He finished his glass. We've got a lot of work to do, Aaron. But before we start, you need to tell me why you did it. Aaron shook his head. It doesn't matter now. It's done. Fuck you. It does matter. Something had changed. There was a distance between them. We did things. I did things that will haunt me till the day I die. But we did them anyway, because we were saving the world. You had the chance to destroy a pattern, and you didn't. Again, that's a reference to something within this file, if I can find it. Sick. If I can spell too, apparently. Ape. Yeah, Abaddon. That was the kingdom they tried to destroy. I've heard good news. Yeah, Abaddon, and will be put an end to Abaddon. There's no mention of a guy named Aaron, though. Nor someone named Arians. Who knows? You didn't. His voice grew hard and cold. You told me to run the moment you activated them. The children. You told me not to ask why, so that's what I did. I trusted you because you've never given me a reason not to. But now I've got several. You need to tell me why you killed Frederick Williams. Who activated the thing again? Oh God, I wanna have the full story here. Okay, what's going well, we watched. One approached the glowing children and spoke the activation words. They were glorious. Yep. So it was one. Someone, just one? One. Whole words. A pattern and one and the administrator. Huh. I think about one too. I'm gonna... So one. I'm guessing that refers to... I should probably just read on and find out, but... With SCPs, it's sometimes not as simple as just read on and you'll get the whole story. You need to sometimes actually check these things to, understand what's going on. But I'm guessing Aaron is one then. Right? Like Aaron is one. Okay, you had the chance to strike and you didn't. His voice grew, yeah. They were silent for a good long while. Aaron worked on finishing the cigarette. Aaron poured himself another drink. As he leaned back against the wall, Aaron could see faint, pinkish swelling around Aaron's eyes. There was no Abaddon, Aaron finally said. There never was. It was bait. Aaron drew in a ragged breath. How do you know? Because he told me, Vince. Why is he calling Aaron Vince? Was there Vince, at least? Nope. Maybe Vince is the administrator? I really don't know who these people are, but I'm pretty sure Aaron is supposed to be one, which I'm pretty sure is supposed to be 05-1, so we'll see when we get to 05-1 if that's Aaron. Because he told me, Vince. What? And when I didn't believe him, Aaron continued, he showed me. He let the silence speak for him. When he grew tired of what it had to say, he went on. It was just before the Congo site. I was there with him. Aaron exhaled. Wisps of smoke swirled from his nostrils, climbing towards the ceiling. Aaron said nothing. Aaron examined the cigarette. I don't know what the hell he is. He was probably human once, maybe, but not anymore. He can do things, impossible things. When the sight fell, he closed his eyes. I watched him level an entire facility, Vincent. One man, that's all it took. That's all Abaddon was. Why would he? Aaron's eyes opened. I think he saw in me a kindred spirit. Then softer. I watched him press through concrete and rebar as if they were soft, wet paste. I watched a man exhale his own skeleton as a thick yellow fog. I watched a woman's blood solidify into crystal, as sharp as diamond and as brittle as chalk. He let me watch because he knew no one would believe me. He let me watch because I think he wanted to see what I would do. Arian struggled to speak. His voice caught in his throat. So you destroyed him. Aaron was very still. Yes, I knew I didn't have the kind of power I needed to kill him, and he stopped and stood up, searching for another bottle. When he found one, he didn't look at the label. He poured himself another drink. Maybe he wanted to see if I would. Maybe he just wanted to see that power himself. In some of his correspondence early on, he would describe anomalies as glorious. He talked about them like you might talk about a sunrise. I don't know. I don't think it was ever enough for him. I don't think anything was. Aaron finished his glass in a single pour. He's the cancer, Vince. It wasn't Abaddon. It was the administrator. He had to be destroyed. Okay, so the administrator is what had to be destroyed. But Williams was also... Was Williams the administrator? I don't think he was. Oh, he was. Williams was the administrator. I see. He had to be destroyed. The whole thing had to be destroyed. It was... The whole thing had to be destroyed. It was rotten down to its core. He lifted the bottle to pour himself another drink. Yeah, he's the cancer, Vince. It wasn't Abaddon, it was the administrator. He had to be destroyed. The whole thing had to be destroyed. It was rotten down to its core. He lifted the bottle to pour himself another drink. Arian's breathing was heavy and shaking. It took him a moment to speak again, and when he did, he trembled with a barely suppressed sob. If you knew this whole time, we could have stopped Aaron. We could have spared them. We could have... just a... Aaron brought the bottle down hard. No, Vince. We needed the children. If we didn't have them, I wouldn't have been able to... Arian's voice swelled with fury. We sliced them open and cut into their fucking brains. Aaron grimaced. Arian reached for the counter, steadying himself. I strapped children down to fucking operating tables, Aaron. I strapped them down and I helped you carve out every last inch of who they were. They screamed and screamed and we kept carving. And then the screams got softer and softer until they were just tiny broken sounds. Little wet sobs you had to strain to hear, and then one day didn't make any sound at all, and Arian's voice fell into shaky, wheezing breaths. He closed his eyes and counted to 10. You said Dr. Williams just wanted to see if it could be done. But what about you? He opened his eyes. Why didn't you stop it? I told you we needed to kill. I don't believe you. Neither spoke. Arians pushed himself away from the counter. Once the Foundation collapses, we'll have a lot of work to do. His voice was treacherously calm, like a razor-thin layer of ice spread across the surface of dark water. Felix is assembling the researchers and finding us a space to operate from. They all think the administrator aligned himself with a pattern. They think you are some sort of hero. They expect you to lead, and that's precisely what you're going to do. Vince. Aaron turned to him, his eyes glassing wide, as if viewing something from a distance. You saw it too, didn't you? The moment that it happened, that it destroyed him, that moment you saw it, didn't you? Yeah, I saw it. Wasn't it? Aaron searched for the right word. Wasn't it? It was nothing, Arians replied. Just another body beneath the Foundation. Just a sec, I need to fix something real quick. Describe audio. Okay, that's muted. Okay, that's... There we go. Now. And it's a photo of the woods. Adam spat, wiping cobwebs from his face. You know that I hate bugs, right? Calvin laughed. I can't imagine that they're thrilled with you either. The thick morning fog seeped out beneath the trees. It gave the forest a dull, amber gold luster, a chittering chorus of insects surrounding them both, as if to berate them for their intrusion. Dead leaves crackled beneath them with each step into the woods. Adam kept moping away at his mouth. At magic. If I were writing a list of things I'd hate, that's what the list would be. bugs and magic. So you bring me along on the one mission that has both. He paused to spit out another bit of webbing. Why me? Why not Anthony or Olivia? This seems to be their kind of deal. Olivia's busy dealing with the liar. Calvin retrieved the journal from his pocket. He opened it and flipped through several pages. As for Anthony, he's getting intel on the outsider. Okay, fine. But this lady, she's basically some sort of wizard, right? How are we going to deal with that? You've got some sort of plan, yeah? I've got several. Calvin turned the page, reading as they walked. Well, what are they? Most of them consist of shooting her in the face. Adam scowled. That's not a plan. It's worked out pretty well so far. Calvin looked up from the journal, casting a glance back to Adam. And if things get heated, I've got something. A weapon. What is it? Can't tell you. Seriously, come on, no. Calvin cut him off. I mean, I literally can't tell you. He closed the journal and stopped walking. We're here. Adam's scowl only deepened. He looked around the clearing. I don't see anything. How can you even tell? Listen. Adam stopped. He listened. Silence. You know how the Foundation contains some pretty intense anomalies, right? Things that, if left unchecked, could end the world? Yeah. Adam leaned back against the tree, scanning the clearing. The quiet, the sense of stillness. It was overpowering. Breaking it almost felt vulgar. Right. And you know how the Foundation has existed for, I don't know, maybe only around a century or two? Calvin squeezed the journal into his pocket. Adam nodded. Right. Then here's your history quiz. If the Foundation contains so many world-ending anomalies, and the Foundation has only existed for a century, who was containing those anomalies before them? Adam tried hard not to roll his eyes. No one. Anomalies didn't exist before the Foundation. The Overseers created them to gain immortality. Come on, seriously? This is kid stuff. But that's not quite it, because there are anomalies that predate the Foundation. And besides, how do you create anomalies if they never existed in the first place? Adam folded his arms across his chest and wrinkled his brown thought. That's all that's really happened, Calvin continued, walking toward the edge of the clearing, is that the number of anomalies has started to increase substantially. The Foundation didn't create the problem, they just made the problem much, much worse. How? Calvin reached his destination. Two young saplings stood side by side. He closed his eyes, took a breath, and extended his arm out between them. His hand vanished up to the wrist. Adam's eyes went as wide as saucers. Calvin pulled his arm back. His hand reappeared unscathed. He turned around and held it out for Adam to see, wiggling his fingers. They tugged on threads not meant to be tugged. They tried to use them, even harness them. What the hell is a way? A tunnel between worlds, a piece of frayed, unraveled thread. Calvin faced the saplings, extending his arm again. In order to pass through this one, you need to have the right knock. Adam walked towards Calvin, staring at the space where the older man's arm terminated. A what? Something that opens the way. Sometimes it's just the time of day or something you're carrying. Other times it's a ritual, a word, or a thought. In this case, it's a piece of knowledge, something important to you. Calvin looked back to Adam. You'll forget whatever it is when you press through. Uh, think of some tiny piece of information you like knowing, but don't have to know. Then step between the saplings. Also, just to warn you up front, it's a pretty intense ride. Calvin turned and stepped forward. He vanished. Adam stared at the space where Calvin had been for a good long while. Then he exhaled, closed his eyes, and stepped forward. He didn't really know what Fac Zero stood for. Did he really need to know what Fac Zero stood for? Oh, I see. That's what it meant. To hit armor class 0. Fac Zero, which stands for to hit armor class 0 in D&D. Oh. It hit him all at once. Space and matter became as stretchable as taffy. The woods pulled away. Air rushed to greet him. It was like he was accelerating through a tunnel at breakneck speed. A tunnel made of light and sound, extending out forever. The world roared around him. He tried to talk, tried to yell, tried to scream, but every sound he made was torn from his lips and sent spinning back behind him into the void. Cold, distant stars watched from above and below. And then, as if the universe was a rubber band that had been released, everything snapped back into place. Adam lunged forward, landing on his hand and chest. You alright? I told you it's pretty intense. Calvin reached down to help Adam to his feet. They were inside now. The air was unusually cold. The air was unusually cool. The floor was smooth, flat, and orange. As Adam stood up, he searched the space around them. This is... Adam struggled to find the right words. They were inside a massive office space, illuminated by dozens of long, narrow, fluorescent bulbs. Dozens of refrigerator-sized mainframes hummed quietly along the room's walls. Adam didn't recognize the models, but if he had to wager a guess, he'd place them as something from the mid-80s, the sort that used record-sized magnet plates for hard disks. Record-sized magnet plates for hard disks. Several desks with large, bulky, monochrome monitors were arranged around them. Adam even saw what looked like an old microfiche machine. The last time he'd seen one of those had been in his dad's attic. Not what I was expecting. Halls extended from all four sides of the room, leading into additional rooms. At a glance, they appeared similarly equipped. The hallways kept going, extending as far as they could see, until a piece of equipment obscured their view. Hello? Calvin started down one of the halls, but didn't even leave the entry room. Anyone home? No reply. Just the hum of countless mainframes. There should be someone here. This place is, what is this place? Adam approached one of the mainframes, inspecting it. Each machine had a sleek logo, the image of a snake with brilliant emerald eyes and a silver crown. These machines look older than me. Again with the serpent. With the snake. They probably are, Calvin frowned, glancing back to Adam. This is part of the library. The Foundation uses it to archive all the works of the worlds that came before. Art, literature, music, written works, printed works, any kind of information. On microfilm. Adam did not sound impressed. Wait, came before? I also wanna point out this sounds kind of like Babylon's library or whatever it's called. Is it called that? It's like library with all possible combination of letters and symbols in like books, and it extends like infinitely. Well, it's not quite infinitely because there's a limit to the pages in the books and what symbols can be used, but practically infinite. Printed works, any kind of information on microfilm. And wait, came before? Yes, we need to find a librarian. This place is effectively infinite. Get lost here and you'll starve before you find another soul. A librarian? Adam was a librarian? Adam was expecting one of the computers more closely now. Hey, this one's not running. Yeah, a librarian. They're part of the library. They know where everything. Calvin stopped, turning to face Adam. Wait, what? This computer, it's not running. Adam had already pulled out an unfolding toolkit and was working on unscrewing the front panel. It's plugged in, switch is on, but it's not making any noise. Calvin approached. Don't mess with it. Why not? Hell, why not just destroy them? Adam replied. By the time Calvin reached him, he had already gotten the fourth screw out and was lifting the panel up. That would be very bad, Adam. They don't just use these to archive lost worlds. They use them as backups for information on the anomalies they're containing. If they lost these mainframes, they could lose critical information they need to keep anomalies. The panel slid free. The interior was nearly empty. The wires had been stripped away, leaving only the hard disk's magnet plate. A dense winding script of seagulls were carved along its surface as they watched the plate slowly rotated, despite having no discernible power source. The fuck is that? Adam asked. Calvin grasped Adam by the shoulder and pulled him back. Don't touch it, he hissed. What is it? It is of David origin. The voice came from behind them. They spun around. Calvin's hand went for the pistol at his hip, while Adam gripped his screwdriver like a knife. I'm gonna stab you. I'm gonna stab you with the screwdriver. I'm gonna kill you. The creature stood over them both, narrow and slender. It wore a robe of shimmering silver. Its hood was pulled across its face, cloaking its features. Still, Adam could not make out a hint of its skin. Still, Adam could make out a hint of its skin, pale, with a slight emerald tint. It had a rough, scaly texture. Let me guess. Some kind of serpent. There's been a lot of like serpent references and stuff in this one. Calvin kept the pistol leveled at its chest for just a moment, then he slowly lowered it. A librarian. Adam lowered the screwdriver. We're looking for the archivist. She is here no longer, the library informed them. Where is she? Calvin frowned. And what the hell is the Vite technology doing inside a Foundation server? Also, the hell is a Vite? Adam added. She has broken her pact with the serpent and partaken of forbidden knowledge. She has written herself into a story to which she does not belong. As for where she is now, if you seek her, the librarian told them, I will take you to her, down below. Again, a mention of a serpent. I'm guessing the serpent is the thing the serpent's hand worship. Because if I remember correctly, the serpent hand kind of just hangs around in the library. That's like the headquarters or something. Then they descended. Long staircases led to long plains of endless rows of books, art galleries full of strange and terrible works, narrow hallways throughout which tinkling music could be heard. Every door they passed was another universe worth of knowledge, and still further they descended. Adam knew that time was passing strangely here. He could not say how long they had traveled or how long they had been in this place. When he thought to look up, he realized he could no longer see the top of the library, and yet still further they descended. After a time, the stairs ended. Their feet struck stone again, and the steps behind them disappeared into shadow. The dark was intense here. Even the librarian's torch seemed dimmed and cast less light. They walked for a while in this dark place, through a massive cavern lined with titanic stone columns that extended up into the black above them. This is the foundation of the library, they heard the librarian say. The first words they had heard in decades. Okay, decades might be a bit exaggerating. Although knowing SCPs, it might not be exaggerating, like with how time passes differently and stuff, they might literally have been walking forward to them these decades. These pillars were forged by the serpent itself in the eternity before time. All knowledge rests upon them. Adam coughed. A snake built this? The librarian looked at him queerly. The serpent is called the serpent in your world because that is how it manifests outside of these halls. In here, and in the dark endlessness below here, the serpent takes many shapes. Dark endlessness? What's that? You call the serpent what you call it, because that is how you perceive it, but that is not what it is. The serpent is the avatar of one of the universal facets of this reality, information. The idea that ideas can exist at all, or that all things have inherent truths about them. It paused. Below here is the emptiness outside of life and death, nothingness. The serpent's silent brother is the lord of that quiet oblivion. Anything that ventures there ceases to exist at all. So like SCP-3699, if I remember correctly, that's the one that just doesn't exist. Literally, it's just a void. Well, not even a void, cause that would imply something could exist there. It's paradoxical, okay? It's a space where nothing can exist or ever have existed or ever can. or does exist. Nothing. Nothing at all. The librarian stopped and turned to face them. This foundation is a barrier between that which is and that which isn't. Beyond these doors, it extended a hand, and in front of them they could make out two massive bronze doors through the darkness. Is the source of all knowledge, the center of the foundation on which the serpent built the library. With this chamber, within this chamber are homes, Within this chamber are three tombs that mustn't be disrupted. They are fundamental to our universe, and indeed all universes. You'll recognize them when they see them. That's a weird phrase. Calvin nodded. Before we go in, I'd like to make a withdrawal. The librarian nodded slowly and pulled back its robe. From within it produced a short metal tube inscribed across its entire surface with runes. When you brought this to us all those years ago, we were not certain you would ever return to claim it. But you are much different now than you were then, I think. The librarian looked the cylinder over carefully. There are very few things that exist that our library has no knowledge of. The contents of this container are one such anomaly. I hope it brings you good fortune. Adam took the tube and held it in his hands. When he looked up to speak, the librarian was gone, and the torch still hung in the air where she had been. The door stood before them. Well, Calvin said, pulling out his sidearm and checking the magazine. Let's go. They pushed the doors open and stepped inside. As they passed through the threshold, Adam felt the same nauseating rush as he did when they had first stepped into the way. After a moment, it passed and he opened his eyes. They stood at the top of a rolling hill covered in green grass. Above them was a blue sky dotted with white clouds. Below them was a valley, and in the center of the valley were two trees. Under one of them was a woman sitting cross-legged in a simple white dress. At her feet sat two books. A third was in her hand, and she read it as she quietly chewed on a wet piece of fruit. It's a reference to the story with the serpent and Adam and Eve again. It's the forbidden fruit, which holds the forbidden knowledge, I believe. Which, again, this is a funny little thing, okay? I just feel like I need to mention this. In the Bible actually never mentions that the forbidden fruit is an apple. It never says that. It just calls it the forbidden fruit. So why people just started saying it was an apple, I don't know. I don't know where that came from, but someone probably started it and it stuck. The woman didn't acknowledge them as they entered. She had brown hair and wore glasses. Adam guessed she was in her 30s, As they got closer, he could see flecks of gray at her roots. Huh? The book in her hand was bound in leather with gold trim and looked ancient. Something was written in small gold type on the front. But neither Adam nor Calvin could make it out. As they approached, Calvin spoke to her. "You're the archivist." Oh, well, it's a question switch more. "You're the archivist?" he said. The woman nodded. Calvin nodded in response. He pulled his firearm and leveled it point blank at her forehead and fired 3 shots. The archivist didn't so much as flinch. After the noise had echoed out of the space around them, she raised her eyes slowly to look at him. Her face was clear of bullet holes. "Do you read, Calvin?" she said. Calvin pulled the magazine out of the gun and flipped it into his pocket, pulling from another clip on his belt. Flipped it into his pocket, pulling another from a clip on his belt. "Oh yeah." "No," he replied. "Can't say I've had much time for reading recently." He cocked the gun and pointed at her again. "So what is this? Some sort of incorporeal thing? Do I need sacred bullets to do the job? Maybe something in silver?" He popped up 3 more shots. The archivist didn't look away from him. "I read," she said, closing the book in her hand and setting it on the ground next to a half-eaten piece of food. "In fact, I read very often. I'm a writer, you see, and the only way for a writer to perfect their craft is to write and to read." She leaned her head back against the tree and was looking him square in the face now. "Do you know how much you can learn from reading?" "I do. It's a lot. In fact, you can learn so much from reading there's almost no reason to do anything else. You can live a billion lifetimes in just books. You can live a billion lifetimes just in books. You can learn everything there is to learn just in books. For example, did you know there's a book in this library written to teach the reader how to allow bullets to pass through their body as if they're not even there?" "I know. I read that book. I read all the books." She closed her eyes and began tapping her fingers against the top of the thick book next to her. "When I heard you killed poor Felix, I'll admit I was afraid. The concept of death is so foreign to us now, and it's been such a long time since I've had to worry about it. My task becomes considerably more difficult when faced with the prospect of mortality. I'm a writer, you see, and I have to document everything that happens within the Foundation and on Earth. I can't do either of those things if I'm dead. I came down here because I thought I might learn the secret of immortality in one of these books. As it turns out, I didn't need the books, not at first. Have you felt how time is different here? It's a gift from the serpent. You have all the time you need to learn what you need to learn while you're in the library." She smiled. "I've been here for some time." Calvin sighed. "So you're going to keep reading until you figure out how to become immortal?" Her eyes popped open. "Oh no, certainly not. I've already figured that out. In fact, I've already done it." She motioned to the trees behind her. "These trees are special. This one here, this is the tree of knowledge of good and evil. That one That's the tree of life. The tree of knowledge grants knowledge, and the tree of life grants life. But the serpent is willy. Really? What? How is that? What's that word? Skilled at gaining an advantage, especially deceitfully.
Wily.
Or wily. But the serpent is wily. The serpent made these trees and cursed them. You can only eat from one if you've already eaten. You can only eat from one if you've already eaten from the other. That produces a paradox then, doesn't it? How do you eat from one if you can't eat from it until you've eaten from the other? Which requires you to have eaten from the first. She uncrossed her legs and stood up. I've been down here for quite a long time. I knew there would be an answer here somewhere. Some secret that I had missed. By the time I realized there was no secret, I had read every book in this library. Every piece of knowledge contained here is contained within me. She gestured lazily at the tree of knowledge. I had wondered once about why this tree doesn't bear fruit. It's because the library is the fruit. I had already consumed it. She cracked her neck and rolled her shoulders. I knew the serpent would come down here eventually. The serpent knew that the only pieces of fruit I hadn't consumed yet were these three. The book of life and death, the book of things that have been, and the books of things that will be. I imagine it would have very much liked for me to not read these. Her back arched, and they could hear something snap along her spine. It doesn't matter now. The serpent is the keeper of the library. The serpent knows of all things within the library. I know of all things within the library. I am the serpent. They watched in horror as the archivist's skin began to split, starting at the base of her spine and creeping up her back. Her eyes bulged in their socket and blood began to seep out of her like water from a sponge. Her mouth opened as if to scream, but instead a long forked tongue appeared at the base of a fanged mouth with a wet, thick tear at forked tongue appeared, and then the base of a fanged mouth with a wet, thick tear. Her entire body came apart down the center, and a massive, withering serpent appeared from within. Its eyes were black slits. Its eyes were black slits, and across the ridge of its emerald back were gemstones that dazzled in the ethereal light of the meadow. Floating above its head was a pointed silver crown emblazoned with a dark Ouroboros. It's at the thing. The thing. The name of the SCP. It's a thing. It's at the thing. The Ouroboros. It's the thing. Ouroboros. Across the ridge of its backward gemstone that the evil light of the meadow floating above its head was a pointed silver crown emblazoned with a dark Ouroboros. The serpent coiled around to face them. The edges of its mouth turned up ever so slightly in a horrific grin. It blinked, and when it did, they could see the archivist's jade eyes again for a moment. Wrong! Factually wrong. I'm sorry, I have to stop it right there. This is a serpent, a snake, a, serpent, snake, ginger noodle, whatever you want to call it. A little tiny fact about snakes. Little tiny bad little thing they got wrong here. And it icks me a little bit. Snakes don't blink. They don't have eyelids. It blinked. No, it didn't. It's a serpent. You're gonna have so much about serpents and symbolic stuff with serpents, Ouroboroses, snakes, so forth. At least get it right. The rest of the SCP is great. Just this thing, like, come on. Surely, if you're going to write a ton about snakes and stuff, you researched it and would know that snakes can't blink. They don't do that. The serpent couldn't have done that, okay? It couldn't have blinked and then had the Archivist Jedi's appear for a moment. No, they don't blink. Snakes don't blink. They don't have eyelids. You can Google it. I was about to Google it, but then I realized I should probably not waste time doing that. There is one thing that nags at me, it said, lifting itself up to its full immense height. Is the contents of that tube you are holding. Next. Is the contents of that tube you are holding, Adam Ivanov. What a queer thing, to be unknown to that which gave birth to knowledge. I'll have to find out myself. The serpent's mouth opened wide, its fangs glistening, and it lunged at Adam. The young man had only a moment to duck out of the way as the serpent turned and came after him again, narrowly missing his feet as he rolled out of the way. Adam heard the familiar pop of gunshots and looked to see Calvin firing at the back of the serpent's head. The snake turned, its eyes dark again, and brought its tail down, nearly crushing Calvin in the process. Oh, bonus time. Yeah, no, okay, what chapter is this? This is chapter 4. And I've just been talking. I don't know if you've missed it. I was mad at the story for saying that the serpent blinked because snakes don't have eyelids. Like right here, it blinked, and when it did, they perceived. But snakes don't blink. Serpents and snakes, Ouroboros, whatever you want to call it, they don't blink because they don't have eyelids to do so. Factually wrong, factually incorrect. Why is my SCP about something that doesn't exist? Why does it have something that's not possible within it? Its eye dark and brought its tail down, nearly crushing Calvin and Boss. I think the time has passed for shooting her. I think the time has passed for shooting her in the face, Adam shouted as Calvin reloaded. Adam scrambled back towards his feet and produced his own firearm, emptying several fruitless rounds into the monster's side. As he did, he noticed the tranquil valley around them beginning to come apart. Large fissures were forming in the ground, splitting the land and in some places falling away completely. In the exposed holes, Adam could see only darkness that extended on forever below them. Above them, the sky began to lose its blue, becoming a solemn shade of grey. The only color in the world was the gemstones on the serpent's back and its dazzling silver crown. Also, hello, Noakia. I don't know if I said hello, but now I definitely have. Good seeing you here. Calvin fired again, and then again. The serpent lunged at him as he deftly stepped out of the way. He caught the edge of the crown, which peeled like a belt and made the peeled like a belt and made the air around them vibrate. As he paused to steady himself, the serpent's tail came around and crashed into him, sending him sliding across the gray grass. Adam fired, and the bullets ricocheted off of the beast's back. The serpent turned towards him, its tongue darting out between fangs as tall as he was. Adam stood stock still, his body frozen, and dropped his gun. The serpent began to coil up before him as if to strike, and he could feel the animalistic urges of his body begging him to run, to flee, to do anything to protect himself, but he did nothing. Cut the... Yep, okay, I'm caught up. Then he heard Calvin shouting from his right. Adam, the tube! Open the tube! His shock was broken in an instant. With a swift tug and hearty yank, Adam freed the cap of the canister and opened it towards the ground. He felt a sudden weight on the tube as something long, thick, and heavy slid out from it. Freed the cap and opened it towards. A sudden weight on this. It was a dark, smooth wooden shaft, inlaid with markings and runes burned into the wood. Near its end was a thick metal band, and at its fore was a fierce and menacing spearhead. Eyeing it over quickly, Adam could see the words, "Is the non-believer against whom divinity holds no sway." Is the non-believer against whom divinity holds no sway. Before he had to duck out of the way again as the serpent came at him, he struck the spear behind him and shouted panically to Calvin. "Hey, I don't know what this is, but I don't think it's going to help," he said. I can't even lift it." At a word, the canister he had deposited on the ground began to spin and shake. Several interlocking sections began to unfold, and more canisters seemed to materialize from nowhere. As Adam scurried away from the striking serpent, the canister behind him shaped and folded itself up into a large mechanical rack. Calvin noticed it first and shouted to get Adam's attention. "There, look!" and gestured towards the rack as he reloaded his pistol. It's a harpoon. Put it on the harpoon gun. Adam's incredulity nearly cost him his life as the serpent came at him sideways and knocked him onto the ground. The serpent struck at him, its fangs finding only soil as Adam dragged the spear through the grass. He heard the crack of Calvin's weapon again and again, but kept his head down as he struggled to maneuver around the collapsing ground beneath him. Upon reaching the harpoon gun, itself a mess of gears, pulleys, and steel, he heaved the spear upon the rack and began to wind it backwards. With the spear in place and the gun loaded, he turned towards the serpent and froze in panic. The serpent had Calvin wrapped tightly in its tail, the older man dangling cautiously over the rent ground beneath them. The serpent hissed and smiled again at Adam and shook Calvin slightly. There, the serpent said. Let's not be so hasty. You didn't think I wouldn't see how this would play out, did you? I've learned everything there is to learn, Adam. I've seen things that would turn your heart to ice. Heard stories of horrors so terrible the very thought would kill you in any instant. Its eyes focused slightly. I will admit, whatever magic you have in this weapon was tricky. I wasn't able to see it before, but now that I do, well, you know it doesn't matter, right? I can kill you right now, Adam snarled, aiming the spear at the serpent's face. It wouldn't even take a second. Even if you could, the serpent said, its voice like a velvet and smoke. And you can't. Why would you want to? Do you even know what it is you're doing? Will you even know what you're trying to accomplish? Kill the 13 Foundation overseers, Adam said through gritted teeth. Kill the 13 Foundation overseers, Adam said through gritted teeth, his finger shaking against the trigger. Why? You've twisted the universe to suit your craven desires, Adam spat. You've made a mockery of the natural order. Your influence is a cancer. Serpent seemed to sigh. Fanatism? What is... They keep throwing weird words at me. The quality of being fanatical?
Fanaticism.
Fanaticism? Oh, extremism, I see. Fanaticism? Even with all the knowledge in the world, I'll never understand you. With a swift tug, it crushed Calvin and dropped him into the void. And Adam stood unmoving, his hand clenched around the handle of the weapon. The serpent began to move towards him. You think you are the first person with dreams of destroying the wicked and terrible SCP Foundation? Be realistic, Adam. I have lived 1,000 lives and dreamed 1,000 more. I've seen this world turned over time and time again, and dutifully recorded it all. Do you think there's anything you could do that I cannot foresee? Do you think there's anything that would stand between me and my duty? It flicked its tail towards the harpoon gun, but put that silly thing away. I've eaten the fruit of the tree of life. I cannot die. Not now that I've clicked. With a rush, the spear roared through the air towards the serpent, which had gotten close enough as to be unable to move out of the way in time. The spear buried itself in the serpent's skull with a sickening crunch, and the monster recoiled and screamed. Smoke poured from the gaping wound on its head as it thrashed, and Adam had to fall to the ground to avoid being smashed as the serpent's tail swung around and flattened the harpoon gun. The world around him began to vibrate, slowly at first, and then building in intensity until the very air seemed to shake. The sky grew black and thick bands of light began to pour through cracks in it, and the ground below him undulated and churned and eventually fell away. The last thing Adam saw before he was plunged into darkness was the serpent, silhouetted against the falling sky with a shining silver spear protruding victoriously from its face like a serpentine unicorn. When Adam came to, he felt the cool grass beneath his head. His neck arched, his neck ached, and his limbs thundered their disapproval of his trying to move them as he sat up. He rubbed against his temples, trying to focus. How long had he been falling? But opened his eyes with a start when he heard hoarse coughing nearby. Laying a few paces from him was Calvin, covered in sweat and blood and looking profoundly shaken, but no worse for wear. As Adam approached him, Calvin turned to look at the young man and smiled. "Hey," he said, laughing through bloody teeth. "We didn't die." Adam laughed, taking a moment to survey his surroundings. He found himself on the same grassy hillside from before, but the sky was once again blue and the grass was once again green. His eyes traced a path of blood up to one of the two trees on top of the hill, where a woman in a simple dress was skewered to one of them by a massive spear driven through her skull. Her face was unrecognizable, and her white dress was now stained with her own lifeblood. There was a figure standing over her. It was tall and lean like the librarian, but simpler somehow. It too wore a robe that covered its face and obscured its features, but this robe was a much more vibrant green. The figure was stooped slightly, and from where he stood, Adam could see it wasn't looking at the woman impaled on the spear, but the spear itself. Adam helped Calvin to his feet, and together the two of them walked slowly and carefully up the hill towards the figure. As they approached, they became acutely aware of another figure, one they couldn't quite discern, standing behind the one in the green robes. Whatever that figure was hurt them to look at, and so save a few scant glances they avoided doing so. When they reached the top of the hill, the figure turned to look at them. They couldn't see its face, but something about it felt strangely familiar. "Ah, you're awake." "No way." Oh my god, Skyrim. "Ah, you're finally awake." No, let me take this seriously. "Ah, you're awake," the figure said, its voice soft and smooth. "I had feared the worst. This library contains a great many truths, but little is said about crossing the plane between that which is and that which isn't. In fact, unless I'm mistaken, this is the first time a person has ever crossed that barrier and come back. That is no mean feat at all." The figure in green gestured to the dark figure behind it. Fortunately for you, the powers that we seem the powers that we seem to have determined that is not time for you to slip these bonds. The powers that seem to have determined that is not time. Weird sentence. I'm not gonna try and decode that. Not yet, anyway. It tapped a long gloved finger against its head. Yes, very rare. Calvin coughed and found his voice. Who are you? The figure in green didn't seem to hear him. This thing you have here. This is a queer thing. It reached down and laid a hand on the spear embedded into one of the trees. There is something strange about it. The library decided to hold it for you, but the library didn't know what it was. That is very rare indeed. The figure paused for a moment. Do you know what this is? They shook their heads. The figure nodded. This is called the Spear of the Non-Believer. It was an ancient weapon, older perhaps than this library. There are legends that say it was forged when the first thinking being decided to deny omnipotence, to stand alone against insurmountable might. It is very, very strange indeed. The figure made a noise that might have been laughter. In fact, I can't even see it. How strange. The figure looked to Calvin. How you acquired this? Someone gave it to you, yes. Calvin nodded. The figure stood back to its full height. Now that is peculiar. With a deft hand, the figure reached out and pulled the shaft free from the tree, and with its other slit the broken corpse of the overseer off the end. It held the spearhead towards its face, studying it intensely. Very, very strange. I feel as if this item doesn't care for me at all. The figure reached down and pulled the slim metal canister off the ground and quickly slit the entire length of the spear into it, which disappeared entirely despite the disparity in length between the two. The figure turned and handed the canister to Adam, who reached out and took it. You know, the figure said, turning now to look at the woman laying in a pool of blood at its feet. I had known her for some time. When she first entered these halls, she was not so different than either of you. However, her intentions, pure though they may have been, were what led her to this point. Your convictions do truly make you remarkable beings, capable of endless wonders and horrors. Excuse me. It looked back at them one more time, and Calvin became aware that he was being watched. I wonder where your convictions will lead you. There was a blinding flash of light and a burst of heat, and a moment later they were standing in the forest again. And that's the serpent gone, or whatever. What was it? There was something I wanted to see. Queer. Yeah. What is the secondary meaning of this? No, not that meaning, because that's the one everyone knows, right? Oh, strange. I see. Back. That was the librarian, the 10th overseer. There's a story that makes its rounds among certain groups that deal with the paranormal regarding the 10th overseer. The story goes like this. Once there was a Foundation researcher who was involved in helping to manage secure data records, the kind that are created by the Foundation's Department of Internal Consistency. These are records with top-level classification, the kind that no individual short of the overseers themselves are permitted to see. This researcher was preparing these files for transport and in doing so accidentally broke the seal on one of the files, which were stored in infused steel lockboxes. They did not view the contents of the file, but for a very brief period of time the file was unsealed. This breach was reported immediately to the InfoSec administrator, and the file was resealed and delivered to its final destination. No sensitive information actually made its way into unsecure hands. In most cases, this sort of event would result in some disciplinary action, but that would be the end of the story. That is not the end of this story. Instead, the 10th overseer, a former librarian named Diane Walters, personally saw to it that the individual responsible for the temporary breach was brutally tortured for what they called hostile actions taken against the Foundation information security, and used the beatings to try and expose the individual as being a spy. In an apparent bid to try and stop the torture, the researcher admitted to being a spy and was summarily killed. One individual close to the Foundation recalls hearing frequently about how the most frightening overseer was the one they call Green, but the most dangerous was the archivist. The archivist is not just an apparent sociopath, she is also seemingly obsessed with the concept of omniscience and believes that it is her duty to control all available knowledge and use it to meet the Foundation's ends. How Diane Walters became the 10th overseer was no mystery. Before her affiliations with the Foundation, she was a well-known school teacher with a disciplinary record for harming students who did not meet her ridiculous standards of conduct. She was also known for having near-perfect recall and was twice featured on American television as someone who was able to remember anything that they had ever learned. This made her invaluable, and she was recruited by the Foundation sometime in the 1960s. How she eventually became the 10th overseer is an internal secret, but her presence on the council came as no surprise to those who were aware of her abilities. One report I read indicated that she is also obsessed with the idea that the overseers are somehow divine, and that their position atop the Foundation's mechanisms was a gift of fate that bestows them with capital reckoning and final judgment on all living creatures. This same report indicated that she is also a shut-in, only leaving her undisclosed estate to enter the Wanderer's library, where she is a frequent, albeit unwelcome guest. The library is loath to give up its secrets, but there are rumors that the library considers the 12th, not the 12th, considers the 10th overseer to be something of an abomination, as she does not learn as much as she absorbs information. Despite this, though, they have shown themselves capable of shutting individuals out of the library in the past, they are either unable or unwilling to do so in this case. In my travels, I once came upon a portion of a journal that had supposedly been penned by the overseer herself. In it, she spent a considerable amount of time railing against the ignorant machinations of a failing race and expressing a truly impressive disdain for other people. At the same time, she also ranted in apparent fear of her own mortality, believing that it was unfair that she should be forced to suffer the same mortal coil as others, despite her being gifted as she is. If I had to guess, should an event take place that would see the overseer somehow becoming vulnerable, the archivist would revert to those most base fears and retreat to the only location where she might feel safe, the library itself. Based on what I know about the librarians, I do not believe they would hesitate to give her up if that was the case. There is another rumor, of course, one that concerns all of the overseers, but the 10th specifically. The rumor is that this world has ended many times in the past, and each time the world has been recreated by an impossible machine built by a long dead race hundreds of thousands of years ago. Each time the world is recreated, the overseers, who cannot die, do not retain the memory of those events, but the archivist, who has perfect recall, does. If this rumor is true, and the archivist has been alive and aware for much longer than anyone has any right to guess, it is possible that she is more dangerous than I could ever imagine. To have glimpsed the other side of the apocalypse and lived, and to then remember that experience, it may very well make her the most dangerous person in the world. Signature. This is crazy that she did this. Yeah. Fourth step. Fifth step. And the outsider. Oh yeah, it mentioned that one of the who was it? Adam? Let me check. Oh wait, sorry, that was the wrong thing. Yeah, Calvin, Olivia is busy dealing with Anthony is dealing with the outsider. It's said while Olivia was dealing with the liar, and Adam and Calvin was dealing with the archivist. So yeah, that's next. But first, let me switch to be right back. I need to go pee real quick. Like I know I said I would finish. I would try to finish this today, but it's not gonna happen. Okay. I forgot how long these could be, but also because, like I said at the start of stream, I've been kind of a little down on the weather today, so I'll probably do this one because it looks quick, and then I'll probably end stream there because I am starting to get nauseous again. Sadly, I'd love to continue more. I mean, I even have a whole bottle of water here, like a big one, just in case, but I don't think I'll probably have to end after this one because I'm just not feeling quite on top of it. So sorry. Wish I could go on for longer than this, but it is gonna be a little short stream today because I'm just a little sick. But I'll power through this one and then end stream. Then wait, I didn't look at this symbol. Wait, did I? Too sick. Archivist. The Spear and the Serpent. I did read that last time. Chapter 5. A Life Unlived. Chapter 5. A Life Unlived. And then like a wing with like a little glint on it. You know those like little glints they'll do in animation and drawings and stuff. It kind of looks like that. Or a cross. I guess it could be a cross too. Or like a diamond. No, it doesn't look like a diamond. But like it looks like a wing of some kind. Not like a wing you'd put on your finger, no. There's spikes and stuff. But you get the point. Then, and it's the decrepit warehouse. Ewan, it's Ewan again. Ewan Siegel sat in the back room of a bustling Somali warehouse. Through the cracks of the blinds, he could see people moving to and fro. The first faint breaths of the new insurgency. He thought the name was ridiculous. He thought the name was ridiculous. Most of them did. But ridiculous was part of the equation. Make them believe you're incompetent. Make them think it's not an act. Their footprint was small, but growing steadily. Already they had raided 3 Foundation storehouses in Africa, with another team preparing for a third. Huh? Already they had raided 3 Foundation storehouses in Africa, with another team preparing for a third. But it says 3 here, but this would imply that they haven't done the third one yet. Maybe it meant 4, whatever. Make them think it's not an act. But Aaron Siegel sat uncomfortably. The week before they got word that work had begun on a new facility in Italy. There wasn't a sign on the door identifying it as a Foundation site, but all the signs were there. At the same time, 3 new unmarked ships were seen patrolling. Patrolling the waters near their Somali headquarters. Reports of task forces being deployed in the United States, dark plains above the Antarctic. He sat uncomfortably because these were not the choked final breaths of a dying organization. Frederick Williams was dead, annihilated by the finger of God himself. Most of the O5 research team, the senior leadership of the fledgling Foundation had either been killed in the ensuing chaos or defected along with Aaron and Arians. Many others had left their posts to join them too, for any number of ideological reasons. The Chaos Insurgency. Yet in the midst of their great defeat, the Foundation continued on, their operations seemingly untouched. And Aaron Siegel sat uncomfortably. Telephone on his desk rang out its piercing notice, and Aaron moved to answer it. He hesitated. The phone had only ever seemed to want to bring him bad news. Another shipment lost. Foundation sites increasing security. More sites under construction. Everything they had sacrificed, everything they had given up, would be for nothing if the Foundation and its efforts were not ground to halt. And would be for nothing if the Foundation and its efforts were not ground to a halt. The fear of failure, of the reckoning of his sins, stayed his hand for a moment. But Aaron Siegel answered the phone. "Can you hear the black wolf howl at the moon?" said Arians, his rough tenor barely audible across their meager connection. "Vincent," Arian sighed in relief. His friend's voice was a welcome reprieve, even in spite of its tone. "You're well?" "I've told you 1,000 times," Arian growled over the receiver. "Finish the phrase. It's a security measure. We cannot be compromised, especially not now." Arian's heart dropped slightly. "What news?" Arians paused. "They're moving to South America. The Broken Guard fanatics are involved in some activity there. The Foundation is shipping out in mass." "How many?" Aaron felt himself ask. 200, maybe 300 men. "This is the start of the Broken Guard chapter. It's all coming together now. It's all coming together now." Just a sec, let me... No, there I pressed the Foundation logo. Whoops. Oh, bosses. Look. The Broken Guard. The Broken Guard chapter. It starts down in South America with... And it has all those, like... Broken Guard fanatics and stuff. They're moving to South America. The Broken Guard fanatics are involved. Yeah. The last chapter we heard from these two, and it was immediately after the part 1, the children. Like, they were talking about how they killed Williams and stuff. And now it seems to be leading up to and mentioning the Broken Guard. So all this takes place in the same timeline. It's all coming together now. Like that. Oh, was nice cracking my fingers there. I don't know if that came across on the mic. "How many?" Aaron felt himself ask. 200, maybe 300 men, Aaron said. "And that's not including some other staff members they're moving in from other sites in the region. It's a full-on escalation, Aaron." Aaron sunk into his chair. The receiver of the phone felt heavy in his hand, and he heard a distant crackling that swept over him in waves. How could this be happening? They should be in ruins. Arian's voice shocked him and brought him back to reality with a start. Yes, sorry, I just... Vince, how is this happening? What did we do wrong? Oh, hey, Forrest. Nice seeing you back. I'm guessing you're in the Discord wanting to speak. There you go.
Is that a bowling alley?
What?
Was that a bowling alley?
Yeah, I heard from Wiki when I came back. I was gone for so long because I accidentally clogged the toilet.
The bowling stream.
No. Trishik, let me boost the, because apparently you were low during the last stream, but I'm not gonna force you to put your mic closer to your face. I'm going to instead apply a boost to the audio like this, like filter gain.
I mean, I heard myself on the stream. I sound fine.
Oh, okay, there we go.
All right.
Yeah, it's coming together. All of it.
I gotta check it. Hello. Hello.
Hello. Oh my god. Now you put it closer to your face anyway.
Okay, I guess I'll just.
Okay, I think that's fine. Where did I get to? Here. Aliens was.
We're almost done with the project.
Oh yes, the project. There was I almost felt myself like talking about it during the first chapter I read doing this, because there was a lot of mentions about serpents and snakes.
Like the 20, no, 50 seconds.
Oh no, there was no stuff like that. None of that.
50 seconds.
No. Evan, wait, where did I get to? You confused me. Have you been here for the Our Power streams? Do you know anything that's going on?
No.
Okay. Let me give you a brief rundown. So in this one, they tortured some children and made them into a tool that could destroy anything. In this one, there
Yay.
was you know about this one. This is the one with all the cogs and gears and the screams. Oh, the screams. I've told you about that one off stream. Atonement. This one they made another Eldritch Guard and they basically got destroyed. Like they they got killed almost. They made like an Eldritch Guard that controlled gravity, and then it folded. It folded all the Foundation members in on themselves.
Yay.
And now we at this one, which is about a small group of people that is seeking to destroy the Foundation by killing all the O5 members. I hope you know what the
Yay.
O5 is. You do know what the O5 is, correct? I'm not seeing.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. What's the thing? Okay. And this is mentioning the broken guard. So we've looped back around. How many? Yes. Ellen was. Yes. Sorry, I was just Vince. How is this happening? What did we do wrong? Aliens was quiet for a moment. Maybe Sophia was just more resourceful than we anticipated. Look, Aaron. He took a deep breath. All I know is that all I know is what we're being told, and what we're being told is that the Foundation is mobilizing to Mexico. We need to have boots on the ground there to try and disrupt their supply lines. Aaron nodded slowly to nobody but himself. Yes, you're right. Of course. We'll arrange transport for our agents in the region as soon as possible, Vince. He began to say, hesitating. Possible. Vince, he began to say, hesitating. Yes, I think I want to go with you on this one. I want to go to San Marco. You? Why? Aaron's eyes descended to his desk. Sitting on the middle of it, tied up with red thread, was a small roll of paper. I want to see them. I just need to see them again. They're not there. We've already had our agents in the area confirm that. I just humor me, Vince. I'll leave Felix in charge. He can handle things here while we're away. I won't be gone more than 2 weeks. Aaron could hear Arian's discontentedness across the continent. Fine, but you stay with me and my detachment, and you don't get too close to whatever is happening in La Paz. Aaron agreed and then hung up the phone. But yeah, basically, this is a callback to, as I said, all the gears and the gears and cogs and the screams, because that was happening in Mexico, and specifically La Paz, as it says here. And they even mentioned the Broken Guard, so we don't. That's very clear. That night, Aaron Siegel dreamed many dreams. He's standing next to Frederick Williams as they opened the doors to a building labeled Site 17. Building labeled Site 17 on its door. He can see aliens beside him, beaming. He receives a report of and categorizes a strange statue discovered in an ancient South American ruin. He is there when the truck containing it rolls past the gate. He can faintly see red and green paint. SCP-173 mentioned! The statue! First SCP ever! Oh my god. He speaks to Sophia Light, who has taken to calling herself Sophia Nas Arene. Come on. You should have stuck to Sophia Light. That's way easier to pronounce. At a seminar hosted by Williams. Wait, is that a mention of an earlier? I don't know which one that was, so I don't want to go back and try and find out. At a seminar hosted by Williams, she exudes confidence, and when she touches him on the arm, he feels his hair standing up. That night, I'm not sure I want to say that sentence, but I did promise I'd read every SCP, and this is part of reading this one, so. That night, they fuck like animals. He asks about the scars on her wrist and the one on her side. She doesn't answer. He is standing with Frederick Williams and the rest of the Omega-5 research team. They pass around a glass of water, each taking a drink. Aliens laughs. Aaron says, I bet you couldn't live forever if you drank this stuff. I bet you could live forever if you drank this stuff every day. He notices Sophia stuffing a vial of water into a bag. The next morning he wakes up without a kiss for the first time in a decade. He's standing in a dark room. 20 paces away he can see the stark, affixed face of Frederick Williams illuminated by a thin, glowing purple line in front of him. He is pulling on it with one finger, Every
Purple
time he
guy.
touches the line, the moon in the sky outside the window vanishes in a wink. Aaron Siegel calls to him, but he doesn't look away. His eyes are black. He's bleeding. He staggers against the wall, his hand clutching his side. He looks behind him and sees a man laying dead on the ground, his hand clasped around a bloody, shattered golden sword. In the distance, a phone is ringing. He descends down an elevator. It feels like it goes on forever. A phone is ringing. Okay, that's weird. Dude, it's cause he tried to use a golden sword. Everyone knows that's the worst type of sword. You should have stuck to iron, dude. Iron is much better. It doesn't break as fast as gold. But yeah, this is, I guess, a reference to the Fountain of Youth and the vial of water from the Fountain of Youth that Calvin somehow has at the start of the story. Now, and it's ruins. Look, it's ruins and some forest. A gentle drizzle created an ambience of soft pits and pats on the roof of the estate. The long, empty halls echoed the sound like constant, quiet thunder. One wing of the armor, long since burned and fallen into disarray, was naked to the elements, its furnishings ruined by looters or exposure. Standing in the doorway was a woman with lightly tanned skin and black hair that ran down behind her. She stared out across the wreckage, unmoving. Oh, one wing of the manor. What did I read before? I don't know, but it definitely wasn't that. Her hand lingered for a moment over a picture frame, shattered on a long, scorched end table. The glass had bubbled and cracked, and the frame was blackened with soot, but the smiling faces of the image subjects still beamed through. She brushed away the ashes and picked away the errant pieces of glass and pulled the photo up. Her tears mixed with the rain that soaked her skin. "I know you're there," she said quietly, to nobody in particular. "You can come out now." Calvin emerged slowly from the shadows behind her, and Anthony from another corner. She didn't turn to see them. "I'm probably not who you're looking for, huh?" she said, wiping her cheek with the back of her sleeve. "No, you're not," Calvin said. She nodded. Whoever held my," she gestured up and down on herself, "position before it was given to me, ran afoul on the consensus." She turned towards him, the picture in her hand clutched to her chest. "So I became the 9th overseer." "Who are you?" Anthony said. She smiled. "At one point, my name was Donna Taylor. I was a..." She sniffled. "Sorry, I was a geologist. I took over for the... well, I don't know who, to be honest. But needless to say, the Foundation offered me something I needed very much at the time, and I didn't know better." She looked down at the picture. "Quite the coincidence, don't you think?" They didn't respond. She continued. "I didn't seem to notice. I was glad to be employed, and the things they told me, work beyond my wildest dreams. I didn't realize. It doesn't matter. I'm sorry. I've been thinking about this a lot these past few weeks. I knew my day would come here before too long. You know why I'm here? Calvin said. It wasn't a question. She nodded again, wiping more tears from her eyes. Yes, I do. I understand. I think. I don't agree with you, but I think I would see it different from your point of view. She panned her eyes around behind him. I thought there would be more of you. They're following a lead, Anthony said, slowly drawing his sidearm, looking for the eighth. She winced slightly. They aren't going to have much trouble. He nodded. She looked at the gun in his hand. You don't have to do that. I don't want it to go that way. She reached into her pocket and with a flick of her wrist produced a switchblade. She held it out in front of her, her eyes fixed on the blade's edge. At one point I used to think that serving a higher cause would immortalize you, she said. I thought that maybe a life given in service to something greater than yourself would make your death somehow more meaningful. She laughed, tears freely streaming down her face. It doesn't really matter where you end up, though. Any death can be meaningless, any life can be wasted. Suddenly she locked eyes with Calvin and felt an intensity surge through his body like nothing he'd ever felt before. The gun in his hand trembled, and the hairs on the back of his arm stood up. In his mind's eye, he saw the manor around him restored, its halls filled with magnificence, and its rooms full of laughter. He saw a father and his daughters fishing at the lake behind the house, and two boys wrestling over a toy nearby. He saw Christmases and happy faces and long night hours of studying over immense textbooks. He saw Donna Taylor and her loving parents beaming towards a photographer after earning her doctorate. Then he saw fire and heard screaming, and then he saw her standing in front of him again. She was older now, he noticed. Her posture was slanted and her hair was thinner. With every breath she drew, he could see the years weighing on her, but her eyes scorched the air around them with their intensity, and he could see the last desperate clarion call of a life unlived. He felt anger and hate building inside of him, so much that he might suffocate in it. His entirety overcome by unbridled emotion. He gasped and stumbled as his vision grew blurry, as the pain in his chest split his skin and collapsed his veins. His heart groaned against the strain until it too caught fire and burst, and he was enveloped in flames. And then she was standing in front of him again, her eyes dark. Calvin looked himself over, trembling in relief that he was unharmed. Anthony was grimacing from across the room. When Calvin looked up, he saw that the overseer had collapsed into a burnt chair, and long streams of red were cascading down her wrists. She smiled weakly, her breath ragged and airy. He holstered his gun and walked slowly towards her, careful to avoid the blood-stained knife on the ground. As he approached, she raised one pale arm towards him and handed him the picture in her hand. He took it, and she relaxed. "Why?" Calvin asked. She shrugged. "It doesn't matter," she coughed, and blood pulsed out of her veins. Her eyes, hazy and now struggling to focus, caught his. "Are you afraid of death?" "No." He paused. "No." She grinned at him, her eyes closing as her consciousness began to drift away. She put one hand on his face, droplets of blood smearing across his cheek. "You're lying," she said, and then she died. Woo! Let's go. I forgot to read about her backstory when I was here. The archivist, yeah, we know about the outside 05-9, the outsider. Adult female of Maori descent, appears to be in her late 30s. The only current member of the council believed to be recruited from outside the Foundation. Despite some irregularities, bears a striking resemblance to Donna Taylor, a noted geologist who apparently took her own life in 1985 after a massive scandal involving severe academic misconduct was revealed, professionally ruining her credibility and involving her in a number of lawsuits for fraud and the misuse of public funding. Due to her scientific background, 05-9 is perhaps the most focused research mind on the council. She maintains several major projects at any point in time, several of which have gone on to produce technology used by the Foundations in major applications, such as the cat counter. One of the more secretive members of the council, the outsider is rarely seen outside of Overwatch Command. Notably, her inclusion on the council is a point of issue with several other members who see her as needlessly short-sighted. Journal entry: The Ninth Overseer. Unlike many of the other individuals I've described in this journal, there is perhaps Unlike many of the other individuals I've described in this journal, there is perhaps the most information available on the Ninth Overseer, the one often called the Outsider. She's called the Outsider because, unlike the other Overseers and many other individuals in the Foundation, she was not recruited from within, but rather was chosen to replace the previous 05-9 as a civilian. Who the previous 05-9 was, or what they did to earn the ire of the council, is unknown. The end result was a vacancy on the council and a seat to fill. The selection process, I am told, was given over to 05-7, Green, who's apparently the most feared or something, who promptly narrowed the selection down to a handful of candidates. Donna Taylor was one of the names on that list. She was an Australian geologist who had very recently been discredited academically in order to prevent her research, which was unintentionally discovered. Which has unintentionally discovered a powerful gravitational anomaly from being released to the public. in order to prevent her research, which has unintentionally discovered a powerful question from being released to the public. Oh yeah, I remember that. That was on that was the oh, damn it, what was it? It was mentioned in the previous document that they discovered some anomaly. Gravitational anomaly. Taylor's name on that list no doubt caused some considerable distress to a handful of other council members, because without exception all of the information I have gotten about 05-9 states that her appointment was contentious and that it, full stop, was contentious and that's it, full stop. I know she has been involved in several high-level technical projects within the Foundation, but the fact that an outsider was appointed to the council has so grossly overshadowed any and all of her contributions elsewhere that she seems to simply serve as a means to piss off half the council. Notably, one of 05-9's greatest opponents was the archivist, who apparently so vehemently opposed the decision that she threatened to quit the council wholesale and had to be convinced by Green and the ambassador to stand down. The source I spoke means those two used to get the archivist to step back from the edge changed her considerably, and that afterwards she was even more paranoid and withdrawn than usual. Beyond that, there's really little else to say about her. She should not be especially difficult to find. Several sources have seen her in and around the Australian town where her family home was, though it notably burned to the ground shortly after her appointment. Whether this was intentional or not should not surprise anyone. Signature. 5. Who's this? The lesser. And then Green. Let me see, how long is this one? It's got some length. Step 6. What's the time say? 2 hours. Oh, I did say I would end after this one, but I don't know. It's kind of swinging. Sometimes I feel worse, sometimes I feel better. So let me see. I have been going for 2.5 hours. I wonder where Forrest went. I did hear them say something before they like went mute and silent, but I did I did not hear what they said. Wait, why does that say Dexter's proposal free? Wait a minute. Oh, it says that on everyone. One of these. Odd. I find that odd. I might be able to make it to the end of this one. I'll see. What about the journal? How long is the journal for the 8th? Oh, they all share the same votes. I see. I'll pour myself a glass of water. I went through the trouble of getting this water, so I might as well enjoy some of it. And then I'll read this one too. I will see where I get from there. If I get more nauseous again or not. But first I need to read this. Ah. 05-8, the lesser. Caucasian male, age unknown, possibly former American industrial Baron Lehman Hoadley, who was believed dead after a train owned by his company, the B.G. Hoadley Group, later acquired by Caviar International, derailed, killing nearly everyone on board. According to many sources, 05-8 originally held a significant amount of control on the early council due to in no small part to the massive financial holdings he had access to through his brother, Garrison Hoadley. After his brother's death and the sale of his company, his authority diminished considerably, and he was eventually ousted as the de facto leader of the council in favor of 05-7. In the time since he has maintained his council vote, but his influence is all but non-existent. Supposedly became obsessed later in life with modifying his body and soul with anomalous technology and artifacts. Paranoid, obsessed with the idea that other council members will want to kill him. Huh. Such a paranoid guy. 05-8, the lesser. Let's read about this guy. Chapter 6. Was it? Yep. The Coward in the Castle. And then it's a skull with that kind of glint again, with the little horse or whatever. Then, and it's a picture of a church. Is that the church? Let me check. Is that the church? That looks kind of like the church. That is definitely the church in San Marcos. A phone is ringing. Aaron Siegel stands outside of a church, its walls rotted and crumbling, strained to hold up the towering pock-marked roof above. Its walls rotted and crumbling, strained to hold up the towering pock-marked roof above it. One of the doors hang loose on a single hinge, swaying softly in the wind. The windows, long since stripped of their panes and frames, whistle an eerie song as the wind slices through them. The entire structure creaks and groans. A phone is ringing. Aaron looks behind him. He can see aliens standing next to their car, watching him. Between the haze of the dust and the setting sun, he almost looks like a mirage. He's too far away, and everyone can't make out his features. All he sees is his friend's coat, whipping in the wind, and the dark glasses on his face. A phone is ringing. Evan looks off in the distance and sees fire. He hears the moaning and screeching of metal on metal and sees smoke rising over the mountains. Every so often he hears the thunderous cacophony of an explosion rip across the Badlands and sees lights flashing across the horizon. He sees, very briefly, a clockwork mountain illuminated by an inferno. A dark star hangs low in the sky. A phone is ringing. Aaron hears voices, 9 voices, calling to him from the earth. They know he carries the trigger, and they ache for its release.
Alright, I might be back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. See you. There they went. The phone is ringing. Aaron hears voices, 9 voices, that's the children, calling to him from the earth. They know he carries the trigger, and they ache for its release. They cry out to him, begging him for the elation of their own torment. They cannot hear each other, but they can hear him. Each footstep sends the tiny bodies withering in their concrete tombs, the broken arms outstretched, grasping towards a God they cannot see. Come back, they say. Make us whole again. A phone is ringing. Aaron steps towards the church, but his gait is unsure and his pace wavers. Inside the church, he will find truth. The sky burns bright in the light of a blighted god. Horse seeps through the soil, wrapping tiny shredded fingers around his shoes. He pulls away and struggles towards the church. The sun sinks below the mountains, and as it does, he sees a red right hand hanging in the heavens. The wind knocks the doors of the church wide, and from within its ruined hall he hears the sound of a man laughing. Inside the church, a phone is ringing. Wow. It's giving Faith the Unholy Trinity. But no, seriously, it's starting to get it all together now. We're literally seeing the previous chapters colliding with both having this church from chapter 1 where the children is buried, the 9 children, and having the broken god of gears and metal and all that in the distance, which is an event doing doing this. Big machine. Wait, is that? Hold on a sec. No, it can't be. It's definitely not. No, it's not the same church. Now, some ruins again. This is it, Olivia said. Calvin consulted the journal. The location was right, so far as he could tell, but the smoking ruin they had come upon was not the fortress described in the text. Shielding his eyes from the sun, he tried to make out some features noted by the author, but was unable to. As a whole, it was an unrecognizable mess. This is it, Olivia said. I didn't realize that was supposed to be a question. Yeah, Calvin said slowly. This is it. Adam squinted through the smoke that drifted towards them. You think somebody else got here first? Anthony grunted. Likely not. I can't imagine the overseers have made it public that their contract is broken. Likely not. I can't imagine the overseers have made it public that their contract is broken. One of ours, then? The young man inquired. Calvin shook his head. Delta was very specific. Nobody but us. Well, shit then, kids, Olivia said, taking off down the rocky hill. Let's go have a look. The four of them followed the road down towards the gatehouse that set nearly half a mile of the destroyed fortress on. The four of them followed the road down towards the gatehouse that set nearly a half a mile off the destroyed fortress on the mountain. Aside from the drifting smoke and the breeze being kicked up in the wind, there was no other movement in the entire complex. The gate stood open, and they passed through. The gatehouse sat unoccupied. Little on the nose, don't you think? Adam said, examining the structure as they walked up the long drive towards it. Evil organization boss has an evil fortress in the mountains. Anthony barked out a laugh. You haven't met Baron Hoadley then? Baron Hoadley? Olivia asked. 05-8, Anthony replied. He didn't build this fortress because he wanted to intimidate people. He built it because he's a coward. You knew him? Adam asked. Anthony hesitated for a moment. Knew of him, sure. I've never met him. A reputation can follow you, though, regardless of what circles you run in. A reputation can follow you, though, regardless of what circles you run in. Okay. They carried on, though Olivia studied Anthony closely as they did. The coward in the castle, yep. The damage to the exterior of the mountain fortress was only an appetizer compared to the feast of destruction within. Staircases were broken and inaccessible. The floor beneath them creaked and groaned, and in some places they gave way entirely to soot and ash. Long steel beams across the ceiling sagged from the heat, and the entire estate stunk of fire and flesh. Every so often they would pass by a corpse of some man, likely a personal guard of the overseer, their bodies charred and their faces mutilated. Several of them were piled against the inside of a locked door. More lay flat on the ground, running from something in the rear of the building. They descended the levels they could until they reached a large room whose walls seemed to no longer exist. The roof above it had long since collapsed, and smoke still floated out in whose walls seemed to no longer and smoke still floated into the evening sky. There were guards in this room too, though most of them were now superimposed against the walls, nothing more than the absence of a man where the heat couldn't reach. They crossed the chamber, careful to avoid the corpses. The point from which the devastation seemed to have burst forth. It was the corpse of a man, his body flayed open and his skin blackened. Something dull and metallic was anchored onto his exposed spine, and as they approached, they could hear a gentle whirring of spinning gears. From within his chest grew a massive, scorched, flesh-covered spire that branched out in all directions towards the ceiling. Large chunks of burnt meat sat rotting around the room. Anthony stooped down to study the figure. "Yep," he said, "that's definitely the overseer." "What the fuck happened here, then?" Adam said, incredulous. "If I had to take a guess," Anthony said, standing back up, "I think that Baron had enjoyed the benefits of some sort of augmentations or magic or something unnatural, which were kept in check because he couldn't die. He glanced around the room. Judging by how far down the fires have burned, I'd guess that a few weeks ago he suddenly found himself very mortal, and his augmentations didn't agree with each other." He poked the spinning gear mechanism with his foot, causing it to spin a little faster. Yeah, definitely didn't agree with each other." Olivia peered down at the corpse. "That's it then? One more down?" Calvin nodded as he surveyed the scene. "Everything here looks more or less self-contained. I guess we're finished here." He glanced at his watch. "It's going to be late soon. Let's find somewhere to bunk down, and we'll leave in the morning. So we're standing alone on a beach, and our evac is 5 minutes away." Calvin growled, his voice hushed as he gestured a spinning helicopter. "We've got peacekeepers on the other side of this hill, and the rapid occult is sprinting down the beach. There's a Foundation destroyer parked 3 miles off the beach. You can barely see it, but we know that at any moment they could open up a railgun and turn us into a wet smear on the sand." Adam rocked back and forth with gritty excitement. "So what did you do?" Calvin made another grand gesture. "What do you think? I unclipped my rifle and mowed them down, every last one, all fire and hot lead and fury, until the breach was empty and our evac arrived." The young man's eyes were nearly bright enough to illuminate the dark room. "Holy shit, dude. Why haven't you told me this before?" "Because it's bullshit," Olivia said, walking into the room and setting down scavenged food from the kitchens. "What your glorious leader has failed to mention is that he had lost his gun before we ever got on the beach." What your glorious leader has failed to mention is that he had dropped his gun before he dropped it when one of the native kids threw a rock at him while we were riding down the main road about 3 towns away, in lieu of Wambu style shootout. And while she said, smiling at Calvin as he simmered across the room. I I clambered us up a big sea turtle and we hid underneath it until the peacekeeper had clambered us up a big sea turtle and we hid underneath it until the peacekeepers had moved on and the occultists got bored. Then we swam out to the sandbar when the Woos was waiting in a fishing boat. She poked a finger towards Calvin. And I wouldn't call that glorified dinghy a Foundation destroyer. It was barely a patrol ship. It was barely a patrol ship. There we go. You know, he said, glowering, there's something to be said about the victors getting to write history. I know, she said, grinning. I just did. Adam laughed. I didn't realize you two had known each other so long. Have you worked together for a while? A while, Olivia spat. How old do you think I am? Adam's foot promptly ran itself a mile down his throat, and Olivia laughed again. Yes, she said. It's been a while. We first met when in Budapest. That would have been in 94. Too long, Calvin squawked, taking a drink from a metal flask. Ever since I had to pull her ass off the street when she was running with that group of art monkeys. Excuse me, she said, smacking the back of his hand with a wooden spoon. Those art monkeys were how I got my foot in the door here. The great Calvin Lucian would have had no interest in me if I couldn't do magic in me. I don't have any interest in you now, he said, earning himself another smack. Hang on, magic? Like you're a wizard? Adam said with a renewed sense of awe. Adam said with renewed awe. How do I not know this? I don't make a habit out of talking about it in public. Wizard, yes. Wiki, indeed. Pop, Olivia said, stirring her soup. But yes, once upon a time I was the incredible Ivory, an anarchist of some renown. I worked a couple of shows in Paris and Munich before our cell got busted by Foundation thugs. We got scattered and the insurgency moved in to pick up the pieces. She eyed Calvin again. In Budapest. Where do I feel like I've heard this before? Something about Budapest. Two sec, let me check something. Nope, nothing. I just thought I felt I'd heard about Budapest in that one. But apparently not. Said Winnie. It's been a while. We first met when in Budapest. That would have been in 94. Too long, Collins. In Budapest. He shrugged. I've cleaned up plenty of the Foundation's messes in my day. They all sort of run together after a while. So what I was doing. Front of As another death smack rang through the ruined hall, they had made in. Let me try again. As another death smack rang through the ruined hall they had made their camp in, Anthony shoveled around a corner holding a stack of books. He grunted as he tossed them to the ground in front of the group and gave them a nudge with his foot. "All right, homework time," Olivia scowled. "We haven't even finished dinner yet. You don't think we have time for a single night off? We haven't stopped in weeks." Anthony grabbed the book off the top of the pile and settled into a large chair. "Suit yourself, but remember that the overseers aren't taking the night off." They each grudgingly picked up a book and began to flip through them. After quickly skimming a couple of pages, Adam paused. "Anthony," he said, "what about you? You've been around for a while, right?" Anthony grunted a response. "How long is that exactly?" Adam inquired. Anthony sighed and set the book down on the table next to his chair. "I have the distinct benefit of being the eldest member of this group by far. That's all you need to know." Adam scowled. "Come on, man. We've been working together for months now, and I feel like I don't know anything about you." Calvin coughed. "He's just mad because he doesn't want to tell you how old he is." He flipped the page. "Here's a hint. It's pretty old." Anthony glared at him. "At my age, kid, you don't think so much about the things you've done and start thinking more about the things you could have done," he grunted. "That list is pretty long." "I mean, we all knew what we signed up for, right?" Adam said in between bites of a sandwich. "Our lives in service to a better world? Our lives as a sacrifice in order to create a future for the rest of mankind?" He swallowed. "That doesn't sound too bad." Anthony stared into his book. "You say that now. You're young. The goal isn't too far away from where you're at now. When it's done, you get to go back. But me, and some of the others, this is all it's ever been. I knew what I signed up for, eh? You're right in thinking we all did. I'm not ashamed of it. It's just a bittersweet satisfaction you get from it." I feel like I need to sneeze, but it's just not coming out. Calvin elbowed at him. "Listen, kid, don't let him get you down. We'll probably all become Moodians when we get to be as old as he is. But carrying on the engineer's legacy, standing in opposition to," Anthony snorted, "the engineer, I'm sure." They all stopped and looked at the old man, who shook his head slowly. "Feel free to call it whatever you want, but don't call it carrying on the engineer's legacy." Calvin raised a single eyebrow. You have a better way to describe keeping the torch of our founder?" Anthony put the book down again and closed his eyes. "The engineer is a lie that Delta Command tells the insurgency to keep everyone in line. Do it for his legacy, they say. No, do it for your friends and family. Do it because it's the right thing to do. But don't do it for some asinine notion that you're keeping up a man's legacy." "What are you talking about?" Olivia said. Anthony leaned back in his chair. "They tell you a lot of things about the engineer. Some of them are true. He certainly did build the insurgency from almost nothing. He set forth many of its tenets, but he also turned traitor the moment he had the chance to grab power. Adam sat up quickly and Calvin glared at the old man. What are you even talking about? He barked. You act like you knew the man. He paused. I did know him, Anthony growled back. I followed him during the defection. I carried the weight of our young insurgency right beside him, and I was left to pick up the pieces when he stabbed us in the back and bolted for the Foundation the moment he got a better deal, when they made him an overseer. That's impossible, Adam said slowly. If you knew the engineer, you would have to be, God, 100 years old, older even than that. Anthony didn't move. Yes, he said, his voice a low rumble. Older even than that. Anthony didn't move. Calvin laughed mockingly. Isn't that something then? Rail against the unnatural while dipping your hand in that same honey pot to extend your life. Anthony glowered. What? What is? I'm back. So, oh, hi, Becky.
Glower.
Oh, glowered at him. I was also welcome back, Vicky. If I didn't already say that. Good to have you. You don't need to apologize. Anthony glowered at him. I was a child. I knew nothing. I've grown up, but that shit doesn't just leave you. Who knows about this? Olivia said quietly. Nobody. Anthony rubbed his palm against his temple. Nobody needs to. Every time somebody became suspicious, I would disappear for a while and come back with a different name. Even then, in those times I would be gone, I wasn't even far away. Just enough to snuff out suspicion while still doing what I could to protect our ambitions. Calvin threw up his hands. So let me get this straight. You expect us to believe that you, someone who has enormously extended their life past what is natural and who knows what else? Well, you expect us to believe that you now know better than the engineer? Everything we have here is owed to the engineer and the sacrifices he made. Our entire doctrine is sacrifices? Anthony was standing now, his face reddening. You think he made sacrifices? He let others do the sacrifices for him. He lost nothing and gained everything he ever wanted, and we all fell for it. Well, fell for it because we were idealists, Calvin. We believed we could single-handedly stand against the darkness, that our actions would make a difference. The engineer took that idealism, used it for as long as it was useful to him, and then broke its back. Adam moved to speak, but Anthony couldn't be deterred. We built this insurgency from the ground up, together, and we shared everything. He took that knowledge back to the Foundation and used it to ruin us. Hundreds were killed, thousands. He knew everything there was to know about us, our facilities, our encampments, our storehouses. He knew it all, and he destroyed it all. We became a joke to them. He sunk back in his chair. He set up Delta in the wake of his betrayal to be purposefully realistic. That's why the insurgency has no real goal. The sumo modus operandi is the only goal, and until now it has been an unattainable one. This is by design. Give us something to do until an opportunity presents itself, or forever be the waking doubt in the back of his mind, if he's even still in there. He paused to take a drink. His expression softened. He looked tired. Delta doesn't even know. It wouldn't matter. Even if they did, it benefits them to maintain the cult of personality based around him. He's a mascot at this point, and one our organization needs desperately. If what you're saying is true, Calvin said with measured words, then why haven't you said anything sooner? Anthony shrugged. To what end? A chance that people believe me and lose faith in the insurgency? Or a greater chance that they don't believe me at all? Like what you're doing now. What difference would it make? He paused. A goal is still the most important thing. Anything that would distract from that goal cannot be allowed. So why are you telling us now? Olivia said softly. Anthony didn't speak right away. He brought a single finger up to his temple and began to rub it slowly, closing one eye and looking off somewhere in the distance. I'm telling you now because it matters to me that you know. It would be nothing short of a miracle for us all to make it through this. He paused again. It doesn't even seem right to let somebody die without knowing the truth of what they're dying for. We do what we do because the natural order demands we correct our mistakes, not because of what some traitor said to do 70 years ago. He stood, book in hand, and began to walk away. Find whatever peace you can in that. Later, after Olivia and Adam had fallen asleep by their stacks of burning furniture, Calvin sat awake. He rolled a vial of liquid back and forth in his hand, his eyes fixed on it. The light of the fire danced across its surface. Reds and yellows scattered across a field of sparkling blue. It was cool to the touch. It always had been, and holding it in his hand made him feel calm. He couldn't explain it, but there was something comforting about, where did you get that, Calvin? It wasn't voiced like a question. Calvin spun quickly to find Anthony standing a few paces behind him, face only partially illuminated by the light of the moon. Calvin tucked the vial into his pocket. It's none of your business, he said quietly. Anthony snorted. It's absolutely my business, because last I checked there wasn't any of it left. He came forward out of the dark and took a seat on the ground next to Calvin. He was whittling at a stick with a short knife. Do you know what that is? Do you know what it is? Calvin nodded. It's water from the fountain of life. Anthony cocked his head, peering down at the end of his stick. That it is. I imagine you have already used another vial to help bring... That it is. I imagine you have already used another vial to help bring poor Dr. Carter to a long-awaited grave. Calvin nodded. Yet, here you are with another one. Now that is something, isn't it? He said Set the knife and stick down and leaned back against the chair. When they ran the foundation dry, there was just enough water left for 12 vials. Each of them had already drank from and and had their internal youth assured, but these extra 12 vials were given to each of them, just in case. Last I had heard, they had all been consumed, but now you have 2. I wonder whose you ended up with. He paused. What are you going to do with it? Nothing, Calvin said quickly. Destroy it eventually? Anthony closed his eyes. Good. There's nothing in that bottle but poison. Take my word for it. It'll clean up your wounds and restore your youth. But the life you lead afterwards is a shallow one, an empty one. You start to lose the taste of things. The color starts to come out of the sky. So you really have tasted the waters, Calvin said, something like incredulity betraying his words. Anthony sighed. Yes, when we defected, we took vials of water from the fountain for ourselves. Not all of us, but a few. I was one of the lucky ones. He laughed. Lucky? No, not lucky. Once I realized what it was that I had done, I spent years trying to find a way to undo it. The steps I've taken haven't brought back my taste or brightened my eyes, but they have made me start aging again. Slowly. Calvin pulled the vial back out and looked at it for a moment. When he turned back to Anthony, the man was looking at him. Back at the tour, when Donna Taylor said you were lying about being afraid of death, what do you think she meant by that? Anthony asked. Calvin shrugged. I don't know. I'm really not. He paused. Oh, well, I don't know. I'm not afraid of dying myself. But when I think about losing people, the ones I'm close to are the ones who look to me for guidance. Something about that makes me feel sick. Of course it does, Anthony said, smiling. There's nothing wrong with being afraid of death, Calvin. It's the great unknown, and the fear of losing people to it has driven greater men to worse evils. Trust me, even I have succumbed to that fear before. He stopped for a moment, staring now at the edge of his knife blade. The difference between us and the Foundation is that we can accept death's role in the natural order, as we can accept the natural order for what it is. The Foundation contains these monsters and miracles and researches them in the hopes of finding greater truths, all for the benefit of the overseers. They claim to want to keep the power of gods out of the wrong hands, so they keep it for themselves. We deny the power of the gods at all. He clicked his tongue against his teeth. It shouldn't exist, Calvin. Not like this. Our world wasn't made to sustain it. Anthony looked back down at the vial. The decision is yours, Calvin. But if I were you, I would destroy it and never think of it again. Because I won't yet let you use it, and I don't want to kill you. I won't let you make the same mistake he made. Calvin didn't look up at him. You said you've come and gone over the years, that you've used different names. Who are you? Anthony smiled. For you, right now, I'm Anthony Wright. I've been other people before, but all of those people died when I passed to the next name. The man I was when I defected hasn't been alive in decades. With that, Anthony turned over onto his side and within moments was quietly snoring from under his jacket. Calvin persisted a while longer, until he too was taken by sleep. So I'm guessing Anthony is is actually not Erwin, but because I feel like Erwin is actually the guy that defected, the so-called engineer that that tried to kill the Foundation, defected, then realized he failed at killing the Foundation and made the Chaos Insurgency, but well, he defected, made Chaos Insurgency, realized the Foundation wasn't dead, and then eventually defected. That's the engineer for you. And I'm guessing that's Aaron, but I'm guessing Anthony, as he is named now, was at first what was his name? Aris? Yeah, Aris. I can't find his name anywhere right now, but it was mentioned somewhere here. Yeah. Oh, Arians. That, I'm guessing that was Anthony in his previous life, so to speak. But yeah, that's that overseer dead. They didn't even have to kill him. He was already dead when they found him. Just a bunch of explanation, basically. Well, now I need to read the journal entry. The 8th Overseer, Baron Lehman Holdley, the man who is almost certainly 05-8, was a turn-of-the-century American industrialist who, together with his brother Garrison, founded the BG Holdley Group, a holdings company that ran several large-scale mining operations across the southern United States and in Mexico. Additionally, the company was one of the first to lay rail lines from Mexico City to San Antonio, making it immensely profitable and inadvertently founding the BG. Hi, W Live. Hello, Mastermind. And inadvertently founding the BG Hoadley rail line. Yep. And I'm guessing the city of Mexico, San Antonio. I feel like that's also the rail line they were traveling on in the first part, or well, the second part when facing the Broken God. Mastermind, if you've just come in now, if you haven't been here for the past like 5 SCP streams, you will have no idea what's going on, because for the past 5 SCP streams, I've been slowly making my way through this one SCP. So, welcome to SCP-001, a Bowers, an immensely long SCP that's taken so long to read. And I'm not even done yet. I mention this because I have little doubt that without the assets of Baron and his brother, the early Foundation would have been snuffed out by its would have been snuffed out in its infancy by larger groups such as the Allied Occult Initiative or the Church of the Broken God, which was very active at the time and posed a significant existential threat to the Foundation for years. However, due to the resources available as a result of the Hoadley's enterprise, it managed to overcome those hardships and emerge as a powerful organization as there exists in the world. And emerges as powerful an organization as there exists in the world. While Garrison was busy running the company, Baron was burying himself with running the Foundation. As I understand it, there was a long period of time after the first overseer was chosen that the first long period of time after the first overseers were chosen that the first overseer did not appear publicly, despite his acting as the overseer's overseer. In his absence, Baron used his influence to shape many of the Foundation's policies and investments, including the creating of several sites in the United States and Mexico. It is believed that many of those sites were used to funnel artifacts to the agents of Marshall Carter and Dark, and that Baron was receiving kickbacks under the table. Here's a weird photo that looks like a train. It does mention that he was in a train crash and considered dead for a while. So maybe this was it, the derailed train. However, his unopposed status as de facto leader of the council would not last forever. Sometime after the end of World War II, a train carrying Garrison Hoadley and several other wealthy investors crashed on its way across the Rio Grande, killing nearly everyone aboard and leaving Baron to pick up the pieces. He quickly found that much of his wealth was tied up in assets that were left to the B.G. Hoadley Group, of which he was not a chairman. Much to his chagrin, he found that Garrison had written him out of the business in everything but the name, and had left the management of the estate to his son Frank. Frank Hoadley was not much of a businessman, and didn't seem to care much for the prospect of actually running a business. He quickly put the company up for sale and received a significant return when the mining group was purchased by Curvier International, whose owner Vi Avakian had been a close friend of Garrison before his death. Frank and the chairman of the company retired rich, and Baron was left with a pit's hands. Chairman of the company retired rich, and Baron was left with pittance. The loss of these resources did not devastate the Foundation, but it did devastate Baron's stature within Site-01. His importance quickly diminished at the same time that the new O5-7, the woman called Green, was putting her machinations in place. Baron held on long enough to secure resources for a formidable retreat in the mountains where he could hide from the overseers and his debt collectors, and then promptly disappear from active participation in the council's matters. I received from a close colleague a collection of council voting logs, all of which register votes for O5-8. This is likely how he retained his position on the council, though I personally believe it was much more likely that O5-7 had simply not gotten around to killing him yet. Either way, Baron Hoadley now bears the title of the Lesser, and while he resides in a near impregnable fortress, he is likely the least formidable of the overseers. His cowardice is almost legendary, with O5-6 reportedly having once called him the most unpleasantly foul yellow belly to ever have a seat at the table. Contained in the back of this journal is a map leading to his estate. I have observed it on several occasions, closely watching it for any sign of O5-8's comings or goings. Suffice to say, he is clearly not eager to leave the safety of his fortress, and I believe that the other overseers are just as happy to leave him there to rot. Signature. Anyway, Oh, I'm actually starting to have a headache from all the reading. That was the 6th one? Correct? Yes. So I feel like I'll be ending it here. I am like halfway done now with 6 out of 13. It's not quite halfway done. Since 6.5 is actually half of 13, but okay, it would feel weird to read half of step 7. So, well, actually, step 7 would be halfway. Whatever. I feel like I wanna end the stream here because I'm starting to have a headache. I need to use the toilet again, and also I am kind of under the weather. I've been a bit sick today, so hopefully I can plan a big stream next time, like a very long one, if I'm not sick again, if I'm not nauseated, where I can have like 2 big bottles of water and just power through the rest of this. But for now, I'm gonna end the stream. Gonna see if I can't find someone fun to raid. Yeah. If you'll be with me on that. Who is this? Each side is live. Know what? Let me see. Thanks for it was fun streaming. I hope you guys had fun too. I'm glad you could be here, and it was fun, even though it was a lot of reading, and my throat is dried out now. But I'll wait for to head here again, because why not? If you'll stick around for that. That's how you spell the name, correct? Yes, I believe so. And anyone who made it through the entirety of the VOD, congratulations for sitting through me reading for 3.5 hours. It's been 3.5 hours. Can you believe that? Wiki, can you quickly go on YouTube, and if you're still here, Wiki, can you go on YouTube and check, is that the longest SCP reading stream I've done? It is not. I can confirm it is not. I just checked. The longest one is... longest one is 5 hours. 5 hours. Anyway, I'll wait now. There we go. Yeah, it's not the longest I saw. But it was fun. I'll raid Quadaddy, you know. I hope you'll... Yeah, the cycle continue. Yeah, 5 hours long. This is still our bonus. We're still not done with it, but I hopefully I can end it next time. But yeah. It was fun. I'll wait now. So see you all next time, and as always, stay trashy.